How's it going, everyone? Twiff today, and I have a special guest with me to help break down the first round of the playoffs and how the season ended. It is none other than the division winner of the Group of Death and the namesake of the Group of Death, my homie Spencer. How's it going, buddy?
Pretty good.
Okay, so let's start off with the most exciting division and really piece of news out of last week because everything else is pretty much wrapped up. We had a three-way tie going into last week. I was 7-6, so was Seagouch and Weston. Weston had a significant point lead over the entire season. Seagouch and I were virtually tied in points. He was ahead by 3. Weston possessed the tiebreaker in both matchups, but he lost his game to Black Magic, a team that also finished third in his division, and Weston fell to 7-7. Now Seagouch won his game because he had Le'Veon Bell put up his 47, but I scored 115. Seagouch scored like 105, I think. So I eclipsed that 3-point gap, and that allowed me to take the division. Now, Spencer, what are your thoughts on this Cursed Lands division?
I thought it was interesting. I don't know how much you looked into the actual. You said you were 3 points behind him going into the week. I think you
Right.
edged him out by 3 points at the end of the week.
No, I
It's
edged him
kind of
by more than that.
no. I if he had a 3 point lead, he scored 110. You scored 116.
So
So
5 points. So
correct, but you had to make up the 3 points he already had. So I think it equates to three. So regardless, he had a player who did not play that he started. And the news going into the week was that it was pretty clear he wasn't going to play. So I think it's kind of interesting. He's not like historically. I would say he's as far as like starting guys who are going to play. He's a pretty good owner, but that kind of shot him in the foot. I mean, because if he starts like either the two guys on his bench, he might have won. Like one of them went for 20, the other went for 3, and I think that it would have been at least close if he played even the guy who went for 3. So yeah, kind of interesting, noteworthy, I would say.
don't you think it's also interesting that he had Le'Veon Bell, who had this historic performance, but he was running him with Roethlisberger. This is a typical Seagouch combo, very high risk, high reward, and it kind of came back to bite him in the ass because if he just had Le'Veon Bell and then a different quarterback, I mean, there were plenty of good quarterbacks. He would have won with ease. So, what do you think about this uh, Pittsburgh Steeler duo, and how do you think it reflects on Seagouch stylistically?
I don't fault him at all for starting them both. I will say, I was kind of curious why Ben was so bad, and I watched some of the highlights from the game. It was actually a torrential like snowstorm, like I mean, you couldn't see the field type of deal. So I think after seeing that, I don't know how familiar you were with that game. I realized that what happened was Ben just like couldn't really pass it effectively, so they just like ground and pound the ball till they won.
Yeah, and Bell
Uh,
just ran all over him.
and you can't really predict that. Like I'm not faulting anyone, but I'm saying like if you have a quarterback who's playing in a snowstorm and another one that's playing against Cleveland, I'm not saying you should have started Andy Dalton, but I mean it's worth considering. I mean it's freaking Cleveland. Like matchups matter in a lot of like I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Seagouch, of course, had Gronk this year, and that I think is a noteworthy thing as well, because he's one of the teams that is worth looking at the end of the year, because he'll be fighting hard in the consolation bracket. And at the end of the year, sitting at 8-6, that's pretty good, considering there were a few weeks there in the middle where he just looked terrific, especially at running back before Bell came back. And I think 8-6 is pretty damn good for Seagouch. So, considering he had Gronk completely fail, I would say Seagouch had a pretty damn good year. What do you think?
I would agree. I thought he was gonna win it. That last week, honestly, when I saw Bell go for 50, I'm like, he's got it. The curse. It's happening.
The curse. Like, I would say it's lucky for you that he didn't win because we obviously were playing each other in the first round, me and Spencer. So Seagouch is kind of giving you some fits with the curse.
The cousin bowl.
The cousin ball. The preview for that one will be coming up. Let's talk about Weston and Black Magic. Black Magic has been a team that didn't do very well,
Yep.
but he beat
I'm
Weston
not
here.
gonna say I predicted that, but I did say I thought you overranked him in the power rankings.
I remember that. Finished in the same spot in his division as Old Weston, though. So what do you think about this game, Spencer? Seriously, I mean, Mark Ingram didn't do anything. The Brown Evans combo got like 11 points.
Oh, you mean Westing against Black Magic last week?
Yeah,
Uh, I mean it happens. I kind of, Evans has been solid, but when you look at Weston's team, it's built around wide receivers. That's why I fundamentally believe that teams built around wide receivers will consistently fail. Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, like you could argue those like Antonio Brown was like number one pick. Mike Evans like has been the best wide receiver this year. Like both guys, he put a lot of eggs in those baskets, and 10 points. I mean, I can get 10. You're giving me a hard time when I was having 12 points between my two wide receivers that I like got it from the waiver wire.
yeah.
I mean, it's hard to win games when you get that few out of like guys you put that much into type of thing.
Brown and Evans are ranked 1 and 2. They're both very good, and for them to be this bad, like, first of all, let's consider that Mike Evans is playing New Orleans at home, and he put up 42 yards. And Antonio Brown had the snowstorm to contend with, but it's very peculiar that Weston would lose in this fashion,
Yeah, I
especially to
know.
Black Magic.
It definitely was. He had Fitz at running back. Maybe he trades away Mike Evans for two running backs. I don't know. Like I felt like he got kind of bad luck. But I mean, like I still believe you can't really build a team on wide receivers and expect to win consistently. Down the stretch.
Yeah, one thing that can be said, I think, about Weston's team is even though I don't think anyone was expecting Mike Evans to be number 2 going into the year. I think, he was better than I was giving him credit for at the beginning of the year, definitely, but number 2? And of course, Antonio Brown had a stellar year at number 1. And the fact that Weston had both of these guys and still missed the playoffs, I mean, albeit very close, but I think that kind of speaks to the weakness of the wide receiver strategy. I mean, your team can really struggle and fail in games when theoretically you should never lose. And I think that's kind of what we saw with Weston. I was favoring him to win the division going into the week, and I mean both of his star guys completely shit the bed.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of noteworthy as far as Mike Evans. Uh, he has a very Megatron style like body and play style, if that makes sense. So it's gonna be interesting to see whether he's kind of like the next Megatron. I think he's a little slower than Megatron, but as far as like just being like freaking a huge body at wide receiver, he's very similar. And they give him a shit ton of targets, kind of similar to how Megatron would get half of Stafford's throws during his heyday. So it'll be interesting to see how good he is next year.
Okay, let's talk about this shit show of a game between you and Aaron, 58 and 59. Rampy, he's had a tough year, His Rampy's fantasy football season went about as well as the Jeb Bush campaign. And if we look at his team, it's a disaster. Only 2 people in double digits. Of course, Gurley, who he took number 1 overall, is one of those people. And old Queefernick, who he managed to play exclusively when he had bad games, got 11. But if we look at Aaron's team, what's left of it, what he didn't ruthlessly pawn away like a drug addict, there's not much there. Terrence West, he's kind of a tier 2 guy. Spencer Ware, same deal. I mean, they're not terrible, but it just gets worse from there. Crabtree's actually pretty good, admittedly, but Rampy's team just was not doing a whole lot this year, and his bench was really weak too. What do you think about Rampy this year?
It's just a disappointment. I think that the clap for bacon trade, the infamous clap for bacon trade, it was really. I think that I mean obviously hindsight it was silly, but I think even at the time expressed to you that I thought it was stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, because Kevin, you have to think about it in terms of like who's holding the cards. Like, yeah, like Aaron didn't have a great quarterback, but I mean, like there's plenty of guys on the waiver wire who he could have, picked up and started, or even given away less for like Andy Dalton or something like that. Because I mean, Seagouch needed a running back too. Um, he traded away like two top tier, top 10 running backs for a guy who was struggling. A quarterback was highly drafted, but you got to look in the now sometimes. I mean,
Right.
that was obviously really foolish now, and even at the time, I thought it was suspect because you know if Aaron stays pat and rolls with what he has, he's got two starting running backs, and he can plug in a guy who, let's say, even if Cam Newton's going crazy and is getting 25 every week, like what is that upgrade points wise? Like maybe like 10 points from like the average waiver wire guy, and I mean he's giving up like 30 points between like the two running backs. I mean he's getting nothing now from his running back since he traded those two guys away. I mean it's just he got hoodwinked. It was a real win for Clapfor and almost helped him win the division or made a run at the division at one point.
So if you don't remember the situation, essentially, Clapfor was anemic at running back between injuries and buys. He had C.J.
He
Anderson
had
go
no
down.
active running backs on
Yeah.
his roster, like none, zero total.
Yeah, and Clapfor had Cam Newton. So we saw Cam Newton get sent over, and Rampy sent Latavius Murray, and who else?
Blunt.
LeGarrette Blount, who had been performing extremely well with the New England Patriots. He had been getting a ton of points. He was top 5 for a while.
Yeah.
And Rampy really just gave them away essentially for next to nothing. And Rampy, he's sitting at 6-8. So that means what? He'll barely make the consolation bracket. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
it's a
playing
real
Seagouch.
letdown.
Yeah, it's weird too because Aaron was always talking about how well he drafted and how good his team was, but we looked at his draft. He took Todd Gurley first overall, which that one's debatable, but I think if you have the pick of the litter, you can find better people than Todd Gurley. He took a tight end in the second round, right? Greg Olson,
Yeah, that was a little reach.
and
I
then
think third round at the earliest
and then
with him.
a kicker and a defense in the 6th and 7th. That's so much depth to give up. And that's just a ludicrous amount of depth to give up. And I think he managed decently as far as pickups go during the season, but the trades he made really weren't good. And you managed to win the game. And I think one thing that's worth noting is Matt Forte had a little bit of an injury. What is his status?
He's slated to play, but do you want me to talk about it now or wait till we talk about our matchup?
You can wait, but that's the main point
Okay,
I wanted to get
I'll just
across
wait.
was like it's not that severe. But
Yeah.
basically did terrible because he got hurt during the game, and your receivers let you down. But as usual, your running backs did well.
Carried me.
David Johnson, man, he's been elite this year. What a great player he is.
He's been unbelievable.
So that's part of having good running backs.
Jesus, 271 points. He's probably going to break 300. That's absurd.
Okay, let's talk about. I mean, I crushed No Fried. I had a pretty good week actually, even though Derek Carr did horrifically bad. I had a rare week where Lamar Miller and Carlos Hyde both do well, and Jordy Nelson also did well. Tyler Eifert, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, the stars aligned for you to make it. I mean, every one of your players did
115,
pretty
yeah.
well.
And the guy who I'm usually relying on, David Carr, did terrible. Or Derek Carr, excuse me. David Carr, he's long gone. Alright, so let's jump into week 15. One thing that I want to talk about here are the eliminated teams. Bing Bong 2, Electric Boogaloo, Black Magic, Handguns and Hand Grenades, and Disco. I've talked to the commish. Disco's out. He displayed inactiveness throughout the entire year. There were some health issues there in the middle of the year, but supposedly even after he got better, he was still inactive, and it actually affected the playoff seeding, so you can't have that. And Cameron started off pretty damn strong and looked good for a while. He of course had Melvin Gordon, Dak Prescott, and Drew Brees, and Julio Jones too. So
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I really think that it. We kind of talked about this before, but if he just gives one of those guys away, I mean, like this league is full of Cowboys owners.
he
You
means
know,
Prescott and Brees, by the way.
yeah. I mean, just jam packed full of them. There's a sucker who'll overpay. Shit. Rampy gave up two top 10 running backs. That could have given. I mean, think about this. Like, if he had done that same trade with Aaron, I don't know if Aaron would value Dak as highly as Cam Newton. But if he could theoretically have done that same trade, which isn't like a crazy stretch, I would say, then he has a Gordon, Breeze, Blunt, Latavius Murray 1-2-3 punch,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure he makes the playoffs.
And
Like
Julio Jones, dude.
yeah, and Marshall. I mean, like a really solid team from top to bottom. If Marshall had kind of an off year, but I mean, it's
Yeah,
just crazy.
it looks really good on paper, but see that's what happens. Sometimes it's not just about picking people up. Sometimes you have a player of value but no place to put him, so you have to move him. And this is something that we've seen from Cameron year in and year out. He's not really willing to trade or be active with trades. And here we see he had a lot of, weapons. There was a lot of talent on this team, and had he moved him around a little bit, he definitely could have made the playoffs. Because yeah, he finished 6-8, but he had a winning record for the majority of the year and put up some good point totals.
But I mean, a lot of those games he lost by 2, 3, 4 points, and like he had a guy going for 30 on his bench, and you just think like, yeah, you can't start two quarterbacks, but you can get something for that other guy, and that may have helped him win two more games. He wins. I mean, he lost some by like 2 or 3 by like 3 points or less. So looking at the standings, that puts him, probably puts him in the wild card. Honestly, puts him where No Fried is, because I think one of the games he lost was to No Fried. So, really, really has an effect.
Yeah, true. But I would say that we should jump right into Aaron versus Seagouch, because historically these are two of the most active owners and two of the most entertaining and interesting owners. And I would say that they both are a little bit wacky. Like, these are two guys who are kind of unorthodox. If I were to group the owners, I would say that you, me, Weston, and Ben probably are like in one little box, and then there's like Aaron and Seagouch that kind of play in this unorthodox play style.
And I put Clap 4 in that as
Yeah,
well. Kind
yeah,
of has some weird drafts.
I agree. Yeah,
Not bad, just weird.
yeah, definitely just unorthodox. I remember a couple years ago he had like a lot of young running backs. Anyway, so tradition of losing and Seagouch. Rapeless is usually the guy Seagouch starts, but he is having a weird mirror match with Andy Dalton. And Ben Roethlisberger did not practice, so are we going to... I'm just going to say that Roethlisberger would outscore Kaepernick, and so will... Well, no. I'd say that Ben Roethlisberger would outscore Kaepernick, but I don't know about Andy Dalton. What say you?
I think Kaepernick will outscore both of them.
Really? Against Atlanta? Atlanta's
Atlanta,
defense isn't very good.
yeah, they're very good at scoring, but they're not as good at stopping people from scoring, particularly against running quarterbacks. And Kaepernick has struggled a little bit the last 2 weeks. But if you look at the 4 weeks preceding the last 2 weeks, I mean, he's going ham against teams. Some of them good. New England, Arizona. I mean, those they have decent defenses. So I could easily see Kaepernick going for 20 plus. And I really think Roethlisberger's going to struggle. I think they're going to lean on Bell again.
Do
Uh,
you think Seagouch will start
I,
Dalton?
I I would start Dalton just because he's at home. It's not a huge deal, but like that's how I would edge out Dalton in that situation.
Okay. I'm obviously going to give the Levon Bell edge over to
You
Levon
don't even
Bell.
have to no analyzing there.
Yeah. I think Howard will outperform West. Didn't Howard have a good week last week?
It was 10 points. Wasn't anything spectacular.
Yeah, I was thinking of the week before where he had 29.
I would edge Howard, but I mean like West had 18 the week before. It just depends. Like he's in this weird situation where he started 5 or 6 weeks in a row, and last week they decided to let the other guy get the start. But if they like decide to go back to him, he could easily get 15.
Hmm.
But I would edge Howard just because he's more consistent.
Devonte Adams has been low-key good this year. He's ranked 7th.
What?
Yeah, he's been getting basically every touchdown that Jordy Nelson doesn't get. So I'm going to give him the edge over Crabtree, although I think Crabtree will have a pretty good day considering he's playing San Diego. What do you think?
Yeah, I would edge Adams. I'm not super familiar with either of them though, so
I'm just going to assume that Seagouch is going to put in a warm body, but I don't really. I mean, I'm not even going to analyze that because I don't know who will put in.
yeah,
It,
same.
at tight end, Greg Olson gets the advantage.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's not really close.
Here we see. Hold on, my TV fucked up. Talk about how disappointing Todd Gurley's been and how it's the cornerstone of Aaron's team.
So Gurley was a first round pick. He hasn't really performed up to par. It's been kind of unfortunate for Aaron, but and you can see as we're making this video, it's fourth quarter of the game against I guess Seattle, and he only has 3.6 points, which is kind of describes how his whole season has been disappointing. Not a huge Sanders fan, but I would like to think he's going to get more than 4 points. So I would say edge Sanders there.
Okay, and as far as kickers go, I would say that Santos has the edge because Tennessee has actually been decent this year, but they're not exactly like a stonewall defense, and Denver's defense is pretty good, and they're playing in Denver. What do you think?
It's a kicker. Who knows?
I think that the Ravens will do well against the Eagles, who have had a pretty shitty offense this year.
They don't really turn the ball over. This is kind of interesting because you see Broncos and you think elite, you think Von Miller, you think like, oh, they're going to do great, and they haven't really stopped people as well as they do historically. And it's New England, so I actually might edge the. Ooh, yeah, I guess I'll go with the Ravens as well.
Yeah, they're ranked
It,
3 and 4, and Tom Brady always heats up when it comes around to playoff time.
Philadelphia doesn't really turn the ball over too much either,
Yeah,
but
but they don't
I
really
would
they
have
don't
still
really
have to
put up
edge
that
the
many
Ravens.
points though.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would give the edge here to Seagouch actually, assuming he doesn't fuck up and have Moncrief in here.
He might even be able to have Moncrief in and win, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Well, edge Seagouch. Let's do the other loser bracket. Weston, who barely missed the playoffs, against Clap4, who made a damn good run at the playoffs. I think that Clap4 really managed very well this year. I was interested to see the big trades that he made, and I think his record was a little bit better than it usually is. Well, I don't know if that's true. He did about the same as he usually does, I guess, but I think he managed pretty damn well this year.
Yeah, no, I think it was one of the best managing efforts I've ever seen from him. I think that trade might be one of the best trades I've ever seen in our league.
Yeah.
I mean, there's maybe one or two better close, but like it's up there. Really almost saved his whole season and helped him edge me out in the playoffs. I mean, he was one game back on me, like at one point, and I had a 4 game lead before that. So I mean, he really came back.
Yeah, and his final game was really close. He played Seagouch, who of course had Bell. One thing that I want to touch on before we get into the breakdown and the matchup preview is I feel like there's this trend of if someone loses a trade really badly, like Aaron this year, it makes them where they don't want to trade again. And I think maybe that's what Cameron might be suffering from a little bit. Like he just is scared of getting burned or making a stupid trade, so he just never trades. And I think that can be a trap that some people fall into. You can't just stop doing trades because you lose a trade, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you think about it, like I probably am the most active trader, and I would say I like to think at least I win more trades than I lose. But I mean, I really got roasted no matter how you think about the DeMarco Murray trade. To me, it's just like what I needed at that time. Like I didn't have a good defense, and I can only start three running backs. You know,
So
it's
if you guys don't remember, DeMarco Murray, Spencer has McCoy, David Johnson, Murray, and Matt Forte.
Forte.
And DeMarco Murray was doing great at the beginning of the year, and Spencer could only start three, so he sent Murray for an injured AP. He knew he was injured, and the Cardinals' defense. I think there were like a receiver on both sides, maybe, but those were the key components of the trade. And of course, Murray went on to continue to have these kind of bizarrely good two-touchdown games where he got a lot of yards.
He was a top five running back.
Yeah, and it's almost as though he returned to his Dallas Cowboys form of DeMarco Murray. But yeah, you can't get discouraged because you lose a trade. So let's jump into this. Jameis Winston facing off against the Dallas defense and Kirk Cousins facing off against the Carolina defense. Talk about some good matchups. I'm going to edge Cousins here. Carolina has been horrific. Spencer?
I was thinking. Sorry. It's pretty close. Maybe. How good has Dallas's defense been
They're
this
not
year?
very. Their defense has been above average this year, but their passing defense is not that good.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Cousins is gonna tear up Carolina.
Yeah, I, for the record, think they'll both do really well. LeGarrette Blunt Blowen versus Mark Ingram. Arizona hasn't been winning very many games recently, but LeGarrette Blunt, he's a damn good player. He's ranked top 10, so I'm going to give him the edge.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I don't like Ingram at all.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty bad.
And historically injury prone and inconsistent, I would add, too.
Like, I have a perfect analogy for like what Mark Ingram is.
Yeah?
Mark Ingram is like a wide receiver style player that's playing a running back. If you go look at his point totals and like you took away the player, you would think like this, like it looks almost like Antonio Brown's point totals. As far as like maybe not even that, maybe like a more streaky player. It's just like
Kenny
he'll
Britt.
have, yeah, like 8 points, 4 points, then you'll have 18, 16. You'll be like, shoot, this is a good play. Then you'll have 6, 12, and then you'll have negative points.
Yeah.
Just like
You
two
know-
or three low point totals, then a bust out, then another low point total, then a bust out. Like it's just really inconsistent. Not what you like out of running backs.
Yeah, and I'd also like to add that style of play is specifically bad with Weston's team, an explosive boomer bust wide receiver based team. Weston needed a guy like a Lamar Miller type, a guy to go in there and get 10 to 12 every week. But
Yeah, it's exactly.
he had Ingram, and really this running back too is the issue I think for Weston, because he has this Rob Kelly guy who's had great weeks, but he kind of splits carries with that Chris Thompson guy, and I feel like Washington airs it out quite a bit, so Kelly is prone to shitty weeks. And I'm going to give the edge to Murray, who's playing a soft San Diego defense and has put up double digits the last 3 weeks.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Doug Baldwin, he has a decent day already. His total's pretty much locked in at 9.5, but I think Antonio Brown is going to have a very good day. The Steelers need to win, and I think even if Ben doesn't play or is subpar, Antonio Brown is usually the guy getting things done on Pittsburgh other than Bell. Like through the passing game, Brown's the guy. I think he can beat 10 points.
Yeah, the weather's supposed to be good in Cincinnati the day of the game, so they're probably going to be able to pass it. So I definitely say Brown is going to be the edge over Baldwin.
And Evans is playing a bad Cowboys pass defense led by the likes of Orlando Scandrick and Barry Church. I'm going to give him the edge and say that he's definitely going to catch a touchdown.
Yeah, I think you have to favor him as well.
As far as Ertz and Brait go, I'm actually going to give the edge to Brait. He's had some decent weeks and he's playing the Cowboys pass defense, and I really think that this Cowboys Bucks game is going to be a high scoring affair, and if Dak starts to do poorly, things might get ugly, man. We might see some Tony Romo action, and we could go from this miracle, magical double rookie season Cowboys team to this weird, shitty Tony Romo no defense thing, and it can get ugly, let me tell you. Things are going to get bad in Big D if that happens.
I'm gonna edge Ertz. I'm not a huge Brait fan. He's less consistent than Ertz, and Ertz was coming off an injury, and since he's kind of picked it up, he hasn't really had any awful weeks. I guess Green Bay, but even like it was like 4 points. I don't know.
At flex, we have an injured T.Y. Hilton that will probably be swapped out. Maybe for old Michael Floyd, who recently got a DUI, got released, and is now a New England Patriot. Imagine Imagine being a receiver in the NFL, getting busted for drinking and driving, and your team cuts you, and then they're like, "All right, now you get to go play for Tom freaking Brady." Like right before the playoffs, you're like,
Jesus.
"I'll be drinking all the way there on that plane." But
Yeah,
I think Clap4 can plug in someone that can beat Hill, honestly. Hill's been pretty good, though.
I would edge Hill. I'm starting Hill in another league. He's been pretty good, and it's Tennessee.
I don't know why my client's bugged out and says Matt Nugent's always on bye. I guess it's because he's listed as free agent, but
Mine is the same way.
okay, but he plays for the Falcons, right?
The Bengals released him on Tuesday
Oh shit. Okay, so he
because he
really is a
blows.
free agent. So he's just
Yeah,
gonna start Prater. Okay.
guess guess who's taking over place kicking duties for the Bengals?
Is
You're
it
gonna like
Randy
this one.
Bullock?
You better believe it, baby. Aggie.
I didn't know that, by the way. I just guessed that
How did you guess?
because
Holy cow.
I was thinking of kickers from A&M that were good.
Could have been Lambo too.
The two really good kickers that were on Texas, like state of Texas teams, Tucker and Bullock. Those are the two that I remember. Justin Tucker for the Ravens, he's really good too. Anyway,
Yeah, I think Lambo went to the NFL last year, but he was like pretty good 2 years ago. He's really solid though for A&M as well.
so the Bengals and Packers, I would say that the Packers have the edge there, although it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, who were you going to give the edge to then, Spencer?
From top to bottom, God, it's weird because I want to edge Clap4 slightly. You know, Weston's been pretty boomer bust from top to bottom. I don't like his running backs. And if you just look at like Clap4's kind of big three, like the top part of his lineup, as you always refer to it as, I think if Clap4 replaces Hilton with like a warm body, I think he wins. If he doesn't, I would edge Weston.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think that the fact that it's the playoffs and the fact that it's the commish will ensure that we'll get some reasonable management here. And I think that Weston's team was had a lot of weapons and a lot of strengths, but at the same time those strengths weren't really proper, or those weaknesses weren't really properly counterbalanced. He kind of had a lineup full of boomer bust players, not really. He had the elite boomer bust players, but not the consistent molding to put around them. Kirk Cousins was actually exactly that and very good, but the rest of the lineup not really there. So I'm going to edge Clap4.
Like I said, I agree with that. But just one more noteworthy thing: when you were saying that, I was kind of thinking about Weston historically. A very good active owner, probably one of the, probably maybe a little better than me, or at least as good as me, somewhere in there. Uh, but historically, he drafts the same style team. I'm notorious for like trying to get like the 1, 2, 3 running back punch. That's kind of my sig, like my chili P.
Yeah, your chili
But
pea.
Weston's kind of sig is he likes going lots of wide receivers, uh, and a lot of boomer bust players. I'm not sure if that's because those are the only type of players you can find if you go heavy wide receiver early, or if like those are the kind of players he targets. I'm not sure if it's subconsciously it's happening, but I just think it's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, he's definitely favors that wide receiver build or wide receiver strat. So let's move on to Benny. Benny King of Funny. And this one's actually going to go by pretty quick because No Fright has 3 people locked in. So Matty
Ooh.
Ice, he's playing shitty San Francisco led by Colin Kaepernick, and Matty Ice is ranked 2 this year. Russell, my Jimmy's Wilson, did put up 20 points already. I think Matty Ice can beat that. I think Matty Ice might put up 30. What say you, Spencer?
Ooh, this one's kind of tough. At first glance, you think, oh, it's Matty Ice. Like, yeah, he's been great this year. He's the second best quarterback in football.
Sure.
But he's kind of cooled off on the second half. The Falcons as a team kind of have. So I'm actually going to think, I'd rather have the bird in the hand than the bird in the bush. And I'm going to go with Wilson here.
Okay. DeMarco Murray versus Devote Devonta Freeman. Terrible first name.
It's going to be Murray. We don't have to analyze it any further.
All right, I agree. Zeke Elliott is facing off against a guy that was getting a lot of praise that you've never believed in, if I recall correctly. And he's cooled off. If we look from week 10, he's only had double-digit points once. This Ajayi fellow on Miami. Ryan Tannehill hurt his ACL. I think that's going to hurt the Dolphins' offense. And I think I think Zeke Elliott will be really relied upon by the Dallas Cowboys this week.
I agree 100%. These
Okay.
honestly, like all of these matchups are pretty softball.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go through them a little bit quicker. Mike Wallace and Hopkins. That one's kind of interesting. What do you think?
Hopkins, Jacksonville's defense is pretty shit.
Okay.
Wallace has been very bad. He hasn't scored. He's only scored digits like twice this entire year since week 3. So, and he's had like 5 under 10 points in a row. So,
Okay. I agree, although I think they're both pretty bad. Brandon Cooks has actually been low-key good too. He's ranked 11. But the Saints have been pretty inconsistent and shitty this season. They might even finish lower than the Panthers, who have just been horrifically bad. Amari Cooper's been damn good, and he has a good matchup. He's a little bit hurtsy, but he'll probably play, and I'll give him the edge.
yeah, I'm a big fan of players with the last name Cooper.
Yeah, me too. I've been called R. Cooper's biggest fan. Here we have Jokey, Graham, and Kyle Rudolph. Jokey managed to get 31 points. Well, the Rams lost again. That's pretty funny. What do you think? Rudolph can beat 3, right? He's playing
You
Indiana.
mean 31 yards? But yeah,
Yeah,
I,
excuse
I
me.
agree. It's like definitely Randolph. I was like just thinking like I know like most of the people who watch this are like in the league. I feel like there's very few people who aren't.
Yeah.
Like I'm imagining like some random person like in the bowels of YouTube like stumbling upon it, getting like 25 minutes in and like getting the R Cooper joke we just made.
Dude, I can like I could shoot fireworks off halfway through these videos and never get a random commenter like,
Yeah,
"Hey,
leave a comment.
did
Leave a
you
comment if you're a random person we don't know who got the R Cooper reference. Please, for the love of God.
if I saw at 15 minutes 15 seconds you set fire to your apartment like never like I'm almost certain almost no one watches these all the way through. I think I'm in fact I would say that most people
Go to
like
their matchup.
watch 5 minutes
Mm.
and then just click over to their matchup, which is fine. But anyway, I'm just gonna say it. I think No Fried will win.
Yeah, same. I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, especially when you look at running back and the fact that
He's got 30 points locked in already.
Well, do you think that, I mean, Ben was pretty phenomenal all year. He had the best record at 11-3. Do you honestly think he'll go out in the first round? Because I do.
I mean, I've been saying I was really scared of Ben, but his team, like wide receivers, aren't really that scary. Tight end, can get 10, but like can't really get 20. None of his players besides like Murray and Ryan scare me. And Ryan has cooled off. Murray's been pretty good, but like one player can't carry him, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that he got the best record during the regular season. No Fried was kind of low key this team that was doing well for a while but losing, and then I predicted that he would get it together, and he actually finished very strong at 9-5. And it wasn't exactly a difficult prediction to make because he had Tom Brady who was suspended, but then Zeke Elliott, of course. A lot of people were kind of worried, rookie running back, how will it work out? Well, he's like a god. And
Yeah,
it
I was
was
like an
almost
outspoken
impossibly
critic
good.
of Elliott. I
And I,
mean, when he got caught in the pot shop, like I was like before the season, like week 2 or 3, I don't remember when. It was like the beginning of the season. I'm just like, oh, another fucking retard. Like probably talented, but I mean, he still might like end up being like, I'm like, I'm still skeptical. I'm like imagining like, remember how good Gordon was like 2 years ago?
Josh Gordon
Yeah,
of the
Josh Gordon,
Browns.
the Brown wide receiver. I just remember like I was like, holy shit, that guy's good. And then like he like started like fucking up during the off season, and getting his smoke on, and then it kind of ruined his career. So I mean, I'm not saying that could happen, but I would definitely be worried. It's definitely something to consider if you were going to draft Elliott next year.
Yep. Okay, so here let's go into our match, the Cousin Bowl.
Cousin Bull,
Now
classic.
this is a rivalry that gets played at like what, week
Not
4?
often enough.
It's once a year, I think, at like week 3 or 4. It's early on in the year, and it's usually pretty even. You won this year, so that's interesting to consider when going in. And I'm assuming since you knew we were doing the video, your lineup's completely set.
Yeah, yeah, I said it.
Okay, good, me too. So Cammy Newton is I'm just, instead of me giving my opinion and throwing it to you, I'm going to start with your player, ask you your opinion, tell me, and you're going to tell me why you're starting them, why you like them, and then you're going to predict whether he beats my guy. So Cam Newton.
So, I'm gonna kind of throw a little tidbit out there. So, I was having a hard time with a lot of my players. I kind of have a lot of like week to week like matchup based plays, and those are hard. So I just decided like fuck it, I'm going to play like the matchup. So every one of my players this week, the feature on NFL.com where you can see positionally like how the other team ranks against that position.
Yep.
All of mine are like the top 9 matchup or below. So like it's the worst one is I think Sammy Watkins against Cleveland, who give up the ninth most points to wide receivers. So I just think that's like something that's worth bringing up. So I just said fuck it, I'm gonna just roll with it all the way. But let's get back into the quarterback matchup specifically. So it's Cam Newton at Washington, who like aren't very good, defensively this year since they kind of gave away Josh. No, they picked up Josh Norman. They're still not good even after they picked up Josh Norman. That's right. The Panthers gave him up. I'm honestly Cam Newton's pretty boom or bust, but he's had double digits every week. I think I just need to get double digits out of him. I think I would edge Carr here, but I think that Newton could outscore him. What do you think?
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that Cam Newton can have a great week. I think that
That's why I'm playing him over Bortles. I think his ceiling is higher, and I think his floor is higher.
yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. I think Carr will do well. He did poorly last week, but he'll do well this week. I edge Carr. Okay, Shady McCoy. He's playing Cleveland. God.
Yeah, I think that doesn't need much
Uh,
analysis.
well, Lamar Miller's playing Jacksonville. You still think Shady McCoy will get more?
Cleveland is like positionally like the second worst defense against running backs, and
They're,
McCoy's just been going ham lately.
Cleveland's basically a college team.
Yeah, he's had double digits 5 weeks in a row, almost 20 points 3 weeks in a row. Like, it's going to be a bloodbath. I would expect him to go for 20.
Yeah, I give the clear edge to McCoy here, although I think Miller will get at least 15. Maybe at least 12, but I think Miller will have a good week too.
Yeah.
All right, here we have another good matchup for you because David Johnson's playing New Orleans, but I have a good matchup as well because Carlos Hyde's playing Atlanta. So basically four good running back matchups here, which is kind of odd. But I'm going to give the edge to David Johnson because he's an elite player, one of the best in the league, if not the best.
Yeah. I mean, not much to say here.
Yep. Sammy Watkins is playing Cleveland, who's god awful. I really don't like Sammy Watkins at all, but my god, if there was ever a time to have him, this is the week. Jordy Nelson's playing Chicago. It's in Chicago. And I suppose I should check the weather forecast, but what do you think about this matchup? Obviously you touched on Watkins, but
Actually, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is affected that much by the cold. So when you're considering like a matchup like when you're considering weather as far as like teams playing,
it won't
really
rain.
you really have to consider like where the player's from. Like, Aaron Rodgers is like in Green Bay, like one of the colder areas, and like has been in the league for a long time. So I don't think he'll be affected at all. I mean, I think he's thrown for 300 plus in the cold like regularly. I would definitely say Jordy Nelson would be favored. But at the same time, it's Watkins can win like the matchup, but I would say Nelson's favored.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, I would say that Jordy Nelson's favored. Tell me about Gabriel versus Crowder. I would say that Gabriel has an edge here.
The question is Julio coming back?
He is hurt.
Is Sanu coming back?
I don't know.
If either of those guys come back, I definitely think like that could have an effect on the matchup. I'm just gonna. I really like Crowder though. I think the Redskins are gonna go crazy, and I think that Reed and Crowder will be the beneficiaries.
Not
So-
Deshaun Jackson
No,
or fucking Pierre Garcon.
Deshaun Jackson, like he had a good week, but if you look at him, he's not really like the main guy.
Yeah, 3 catches, 120 yards. That's Deshaun Jackson in a nutshell right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know he had 120 yards, but like you said, it's minimal targets.
He's just
like
a long
speed.
threat.
Yeah, he's kind of like a Ginn. He's like a worse version of Ginn for the Panthers. Like he's very like, but then like he's like Ginn, but like over the hill because his whole game is based on like outrunning people, and he's getting old, so he's like lost a step. It's like that can basically describe it in a nutshell.
Sure. I think
So
that-
yeah,
I would
it's a-
give Gabriel the edge over Crowder, honestly, because Gabriel's playing San Francisco's defense. Although once again,
Carolina's pretty bad.
no, Carolina is probably the worst or second worst pass defense in the league.
They're the third worst positionally. Yeah.
They lost Josh Norman. This is interesting, of course, because Josh Norman is on Washington, so one of their best players who they gave up to become terrible, they're playing. But I think that Gabriel has a good matchup too. I think you and I facing each other, it's a bit odd because so many of our players have really good matchups. So when we compare them, it's as though I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Because Reed is probably going to catch a touchdown versus Carolina, I would say, at some point.
Yeah, no, I would. Well, honestly, the reason why I'm playing Crowder and Reed is because they have about 70% of the Washington's passing touchdowns. So I figure if I play Reed, like Crowder's probably going to catch 2, and vice versa. So I just played them both and just said, I'm going to get the passing touchdowns more than likely, and I'm probably expecting about 20 to 30 between the two of them.
Okay. I would edge Reed there over Eifert, even though Eifert did well last week.
It was against the Browns, so like grain of salt.
Bilal Powell's playing shitty Miami, But Matt Forte is coming off of an injury. Now, you obviously own Forte, so what can you tell me about the injury? How will it affect Bilal Powell?
So Forte's gonna play, I think, at the game. Judging by the news, because he was practicing. Uh, Unfortunately, it creates this like, it creates this completely fucked situation where it's gonna like they're gonna play him, but in a limited capacity. So like instead of like Powell or Forte being playable, it like ends up fucking both of them.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna go with a really good waiver wire pickup, in my opinion. This Faro guy um, didn't look great statistically last week against Carolina. He only had 8 points, but he didn't play the whole game and he got 22 touches. And it's one of those things where like I have enough coin flips like in the middle of my lineup. I just want like 10 points. So even though like Forte might be like the higher ceiling guy, I think I'm gonna stick with the high floor guy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay,
And that's
I'm giving
and that's
Powell
the
the edge because he's playing Miami.
I mean I think that that's being really biased. I think Powell lost all value uh, when Forte plays, but like they've like essentially neutralized each other. So I think like neither of them is going to be able to like break 10 because they're sharing like all the touches. But just my opinion. I think Faro has the edge because he's the main guy in a soft matchup.
Okay. Washington's kicker is playing Carolina. We all know how that's going to go. But your kicker's playing San Fran, so again, two good matchups. I will edge Washington's kicker. I think Carolina's going to get destroyed probably.
It's kickers. Like I don't think there's much to dig into here.
Okay.
Hopkins maybe. I don't know.
And here we have your Cardinals defense playing New Orleans, and the Dolphins are playing the Jets. Jets are pretty fucking bad. What do you think?
Jets are bad, but the Dolphins defense isn't like great. Um, it's hard to say. The Cardinals defense is, they're top 10. They've been pretty bad more recently though. Uh, I think if the Honey Badger plays because he's injured right now, I would edge the Cardinals. I think he's a really dynamic playmaker, and they need him to play to be able to handle all the wide receiving threats for New Orleans.
Okay. So who are you going to edge here, Spencer? What do you think?
For the matchup,
Yeah, who's going to win?
gotta go with myself.
Okay.
I mean, I'm projected to win by 8 by the retards at NFL.com, which means I'm probably going to lose.
I'm going to
I think
edge. Go ahead.
I just before you give your prediction. So more specifically, I think what's going to happen is I'm going to get 30 between my big three. I think that your big three will probably go for like closer to 40. So I think I'll get a little edge from that. And then I'm hoping that my bottom three, Watkins, Crowder, and Reed. I think your bottom three are probably a little better, because like Jordy Nelson's top tier. So you're probably going to make up most of those 10 points there. But I think that my boomer bust potential from the bottom three should be able to get me there. I think my bottom three are like a little stronger than your bottom three. So if that makes sense. So I think that you have a slight edge in the middle, but I have a decent edge at the top and a decent edge at the bottom of the lineup. So
Okay. Okay, so I think that first of all, Derek Carr is going to have a very good day. I think that will be kind of the first step in me winning. But more importantly, I don't think that Crowder and Reed are both going to get a lot of touchdowns against the Panthers. I think that the Panthers' corners are bad enough where that one of the touchdowns is going to go to Deshaun Jackson because they just get burned a lot. I also don't think, Sammy Watkins plays Cleveland, but he's still Sammy Watkins. It's
Yep.
difficult. It's gonna be really close. I mean, pretty much every one of our players has a good matchup, but
See, the Watkins play was also kind of a hedge on my part because basically last week 70% of the balls were thrown to Sammy Watkins or something ridiculous like that, if I remember correctly. So if they do go through the air, then odds are it's like probably going to go to Watkins. So like if LaShawn McCoy is having an off week and they can't move the ball running, which is unlikely, it's Cleveland for God's sake, then I'll get points through Watkins. That's like the idea at least.
it's also interesting to note that this could have been the Super Bowl if Disco had set his roster. I would have actually seeded and played against
I will
Ben.
say, based upon like looking at people's teams like going into the playoffs, your team probably like scares me the most. Like at the moment, because it was like you're like your team kind of clicked going into the playoffs while other teams faltered. Where Ben as a first half team, but kind of faltered down the stretch. A lot of his players haven't been performing as consistently as they were, you know, and aren't scoring quite as many points as they were at the beginning. No Fried like this is not, he doesn't have a bad team, but I think his team is weakened since the beginning of the year. So I mean he's almost as scary as you, but I think I'm still more scared of you just because like last week you put up such a good performance, and like when Hyde and Miller are playing well, like it's tough to win when a team has like a solid big three, particularly when like the rest are like you don't really have a weak position. I would argue like the Gabriel guy isn't that good, but like he's had quite a few good weeks recently, so like I can't even argue that.
Yeah, he's like been pretty low key decent. He has a lot of double digit performances. So let's assume that you win, and you said that No Fried would beat Ben, correct?
I think I'd have to favor him.
Yeah.
Uh,
So do you think you can beat No Fried in the Super Bowl, right?
I think I can beat everyone, but I think they're all going to be close games. And if my team stays healthy down the stretch, like I think I can win it. The real question is, if I do win, like, do I start Adrian Peterson? Do I flex Adrian Peterson next week? I waited all season, to potentially play him. I thought it was going to be for 3 or 4 games, but it ends up just being one.
The Super Bowl could be the biggest one.
Yep. He's actually Forte's actually playing tomorrow. What the fuck? Or no, on Saturday. Sorry. I guess it's a Europe game.
Oh, NFL Europe, everyone's favorite.
Why is he playing Saturday? What? Seriously though.
Okay, well that was the video. If you enjoyed it, like and comment for more Riley Cooper memes.